A big thanks to masterbuilt for sponsoring this video.
Did you know that the 3-2-1 rib method is one of the most popular ways to cook ribs in your own backyard? And I'm here to tell you to stop doing that. What is good about the rib method? What should you do differently to make your ribs even better, more tastier and more juicy? These are St. Louis style cut ribs and they are the best looking ribs you can get. A beautiful amount of meat, some bones in the back, trim off the floppy bits that hang on the ribs, flip them around and carve into the silver skin. The carving will penetrate the membrane, which in return will allow smoke to penetrate into the meat as well as the barbecue rub that I'm gonna apply later on. So I don't have to remove the membrane. I just need to carve into it to have the same effect. They will crunch up a little bit and become really, really tasty. Now this is the PitmasterX Classic Barbecue Rub and it's totally free. Well, that is the recipe. You can find it on PitmasterX.com. I don't sell any rubs, I don't sell any sauces, so you can just go there, make your own with only a little bit of ingredients because you don't need a ton of ingredients. Make sure the rub sticks to the ribs, give it a little bit of time or press it in with your hand and then flip the ribs around and season the top side as well. And the amount of seasoning that you use is determined by the thickness of the ribs. If we take a look at these ribs, you can see that they're pretty thick, almost 1.5 finger thick, and that means you're going to need a little bit more rub than with ribs that are going to be thinner. So that's a very easy rule on how to know how much rub you should actually apply. The ribs are now fully prepared and ready to be smoked on my barbecue. This one, the bigger one, is going to be cooked with the 3-2-1 method. And the 3-2-1 method stands for 3 hours of smoking, 3 hours of cooking wrapped, and 1 hour of smoking again with a little bit of sauce sit on top. The other rack of ribs is going to be done my way, and you'll see what that is. Let's fire up the barbecue. I'm going to be cooking on my masterbuilt gravity smoker. And the first thing that I need to do is remove the two safety features. Well, basically they stop the airflow when the barbecue is not running. Then I'm going to load up the chute with charcoal. I'm going to open up the ash drawer and inside there is a grill grate that holds up the charcoal. I'm going to give it a good shake and remove all the old ashes. Then I'm going to slide in a couple of fire starters and light them up. Then it's time to close the lid and turn on the barbecue. Just set the temperature and I'll be smoking my ribs at a temperature of 120 degrees Celsius. In the meantime, I'm going to add some smoke wood and that's going to go straight into the ashtray. And all of the embers that burn down will drop onto the smoke wood and create delicious smoke onto our ribs. Now it's time for our already good looking ribs to go into the masterbuilt and let them smoke until they build up a beautiful color. We're now 1.5 hours into the cook and I want to check my ribs to see how they're doing. Well, beautiful smoke color on both of the ribs. They look absolutely freaking delicious. The outside has got a nice dry crust. Beautiful smoke color went into the ribs. The ribs that I'm going to be cooking with the 3-2-1 rib method are going to stay on for another 1.5 hours and I'm going to take my ribs off the grill. Of course, the question is, how can you tell that these ribs are already filled up with good enough smoke? Now, I'm going to show you. If you tear into this, you can see that there's a lot of pink on the skin. So this color that you see on the outside needs to be on the inside as well. This is going to mean we're going to have a beautiful smoke ring. And if you have your smoke ring, that means that the smoke penetrated. And at a certain point, and that's when the ribs get a temperature of 70 degrees Celsius, they won't absorb any more nitrate from the smoke. And therefore, it doesn't make any sense to keep on smoking them. So 3 hours on a barbecue like the masterbuilt is way too much. For every barbecue, that's different. You might be cooking on an offset smoker, you might be cooking on your kettle grill or your ceramic grill. And therefore, you need to look at the color of your ribs to determine if they're done smoking. And this rack of ribs is done smoking. I'm going to start by making a barbecue sauce. I'll be making the PitmasterX sweet apple barbecue sauce. And again, that's free. It starts with a hot pan. It starts with a hot pan and 250 milliliters of ketchup. Then in goes a quarter of apple juice. Make sure you get a good quality apple juice because it makes all the difference. If you look at the bottom of the bottle, there's always these little pieces like the sediment. Of course, I also gotta have a tablespoon of Worcester sauce, half a tablespoon of fresh ground pepper, a tablespoon of PitmasterX's classic barbecue rub, a tablespoon of honey, and 3 tablespoons of cane sugar. And cane sugar just has that little bit of extra flavor. And if you're making a barbecue sauce, which is so simple, then all of the quality of the ingredients matter. Bring that to a syrupy boil while stirring it, and once the crystals are dissolved, the sauce is done. And you guessed it, it's time to wrap the ribs. Since they got already all the smoke on, now all they need to do is get them up to temperature. All we need now is to get those ribs up to a temperature of 92 degrees core temperature in Celsius. Then they're done, then they're fully cooked. So I'm going to add a little bit of our barbecue sauce, just a drizzle. And then I'm gonna wrap these ribs up. Sealing the ribs in the aluminum foil to make sure that I lock all of the moisture that are in the ribs and in the sauce into this aluminum foil. And then it just can steam away and it will stay juicy and tender. While the 3-to-1 ribs are still picking up smoke, and at the same time they're evaporating moisture that will never go back into the ribs. The first 3 hours of the 3-to-1 method has gone by. And ooh, it has gotten even darker. I'm gonna take the 3-to-1 ribs off. I already have a nice pull away from the bone, which means the meat has shrunken down and is already a long way in its cooking process. Now to check on that, I'm gonna use a thermometer and just make sure that we're not exceeding the... The temperature means that these ribs are already done cooking, and we only had them on for 3 hours. Which is the first part of the 3-to-1 method. And by my standards, they're done. Now let's compare them with the ribs that are wrapped up. Now let's check the temperature on these. And we got the same temperature, 94 degrees Celsius. These already had their second part of the cook, which is being wrapped and then taken to that temperature of 92 degrees. They're 2 degrees over, which is fine. They're not fall off the bone tender yet. We're almost done. So now I can prepare these for the second part of the cook, which is as easy as just brushing on a little bit of my barbecue sauce and then putting them back on the barbecue without the aluminum foil. And even though these ribs have reached the right temperature, I'm going to continue the experiment of following the 3-to-1 method. I'm going to take out a sheet of aluminum foil and I'm going to wrap them up. Of course, these ribs are also going to get some of that delicious barbecue sauce, and it's going to give them a little bit more flavor, which is going to keep them nice and moist. And these are also going to go back on the barbecue, but for another 2 whole hours. My ribs have been on for about 5 minutes or so now, and I just want to check to see how they're doing. And as you can see, the moisture of the barbecue sauce that we brushed on is evaporating. We are already getting a little bit of the dry spots shining through, and that is what I'm looking for.
And what about the others?
Yeah, technically the other ribs, the 3-to-1 method, they're done, but the method just calls for another 2 hours of cooking, and then another hour. So with pain in my heart, I'm just gonna let these sit on. Well, probably mine are gonna be done in 5 minutes, and that's a total of 3 hours and 10 minutes of total cooking time. And after about 10 minutes, I have my ribs exactly the way I like them. Nice sticky sauce on the top of them. Look at that. That is the perfect stickiness test. Ribs love people. They want to be eaten. It's like their ultimate destiny. I'll prove it to you. Look at that. Perfect smoke ring. Nice and juicy ribs. Let's take a bite out of this and see if I cooked it to perfection with my method, or we should stick with that 3-to-1. It's probably everywhere now, right? I know it looks ridiculous, but it's just the greatest thing ever. And now all I have to do is just sit here and wait for the 3-to-1 method to be done and be a competitor to this. 2 hours have gone by and I want to take a look at my ribs, because this is the end of phase 2 of the 3-to-1 ribs. Let's get these off. I must admit, it does smell good, but I'm real curious to see how the doneness of these ribs are. Are they fall off the bone? Are they still fine? And shouldn't I be worried? Oh, these still look pretty good. The thing that I'm most worried about is how well done these ribs are. Look at this. Look at that. I'm not tearing, it's just carefully moving. It's just, that's it. It's pudding. The ribs will still taste good. Look at how juicy they are, how nice their smoke ring is. So after 2 hours of wrapping them, you can still eat them. They're not gonna have a bite. They're not gonna have that great rib experience. It's gonna be all, well, pulled ribs. But now, I gotta put them on another hour on the grill. Should I really do it? Doesn't make any sense. It's gonna fall through the grill grates. I refuse to abuse these ribs any longer. The 3-to-1 rib method it's not that good. It is really literally all about making sure you got the right color first. Smoke them, watch that color. And once you got that light brown, then wrap them up. Because all you need to do then is take them up to 92 degrees Celsius. And I don't care what anybody says about poking with a toothpick or doing the break test. All fine and well, but pieces of meat are not the same. If you have one pig or another pig, it's going to be a totally different experience. If you measure the temperature, 92 degrees Celsius, you're always going to hit that money. It's going to continue to cook really close to falling apart. And then when you bite into it, you're going to have that beautiful bite mark. That is what you're looking for. That is what you want. Don't use the 3-to-1 rib method and overcook your ribs. I mean, these must be around 102 Celsius. Yeah, no, don't.